Hey, my name is Tobias Wren. I'm 34 years old, and I drive the last city bus route of the night, the 1140 loop that nobody rides except the people the day already used up. Dishwashers heading home, nurses coming off shift, the occasional drunk who fell asleep and missed his stop 3 times. I've driven that route for 9 years, and I've learned that the last bus of the night carries a different kind of passenger than the first. The first bus is full of people going towards something. The last bus is full of people who have nowhere left to be but home, and sometimes not even that. I live alone in a 1-bedroom on the east side. I keep to myself. My wife and I split 6 years ago. No villains in it, just 2 people who ran out of things to say. And since then, my life has narrowed down to the route, the apartment, and a standing order at a diner that knows me by my coffee. I'd stopped expecting much. That's not a complaint. It's just where a man's life settles when he stops reaching for anything past the next shift. It was the 2nd week of December, and the snow had been coming down since dark, the heavy, wet kind that shuts a city up. I'd finished my loop and was deadheading the empty bus back to the depot, the streets blue-white and silent, when my headlights caught something at the covered stop on Halford and Pine. A shape on the bench. 2 shapes. I almost drove past. The route was over. The bus was out of service. A man wants to get home. But the temperature was down past anything a person should sleep outside in, and the shape on that bench wasn't moving the way a sleeping adult moves. So I pulled the bus over, and I opened the doors, and I walked out into the snow to the covered stop. It was a young woman, maybe 28, curled on the metal bench with her back against the cold glass. She'd taken off her own coat and wrapped it around a bundle held tight to her chest, leaving herself in nothing but a thin sweater going stiff with cold. And the bundle, I realized as I got close, was a baby. Months old. No more. Both of them asleep, or close to it, the woman's lips gone pale, frost in her dark hair. I've seen a lot on the last bus. I'd never seen that. "Ma'am." I crouched down, kept my voice low so I wouldn't frighten her. "Ma'am, you can't sleep out here. It's too cold. You'll freeze." Her eyes came open, slow, then all at once, the way a person wakes when they've learned that waking up can be dangerous. She pulled the baby tighter and pressed herself back against the glass, away from me, every muscle braced. "It's all right," I said, holding my hands where she could see them. "I'm not going to hurt you. I drive the bus, that's all. I just can't leave you out here in this. The baby, please." Her voice was a cracked whisper, and the first word out of her wasn't "help me" or "thank God" or any of the things you'd expect. It was, "Please don't tell anyone. Please, don't call anyone. Don't report us. I'm begging you." I didn't understand. "Tell who?" "Ma'am, you're freezing. The baby's freezing. I need to get you somewhere warm. If you call the police or the shelter or anyone..." Her eyes were wild now, past cold into pure fear. "He'll find us. They'll put it in a system and he'll find us and he'll take her, and I will never get her back. Please. I can't. Please don't tell anyone we're here." The snow came down around the covered stop. The baby stirred and made a small sound, and the woman rocked her automatically, even half-frozen, even terrified, the body of a mother doing the one thing it knows how to do no matter what. And I made a decision that wasn't really a decision at all, because there was only ever one thing a person could do. I took off my own coat, the heavy depot issue one, still warm from the driver's seat, and I put it around her shoulders over the thin sweater. "Okay," I said. "Okay. I won't call anyone. I'm not going to tell anyone. But you cannot stay here. And that's not about you. That's about her." I nodded at the baby. "So here's what's going to happen. There's nobody on this bus but me. The route's done. I'm going to drive you somewhere warm, and you're going to get the both of you thawed out, and you don't have to tell me a single thing about who's looking for you. Deal?" She stared at me, This stranger in shirt sleeves now, the snow soaking through to my back. "Why would you do that?" she whispered. "Because I drive the last bus of the night," I said, "and the last bus is for the people who've got nowhere else to be. You too have got nowhere else to be. That makes you mine to get home. Come on, before she catches her death." Something in her broke then. Not into pieces, but into trust, the desperate kind a person reaches for when they've run out of every other option. She let me help her up. She carried the baby, I carried nothing but the cold, and I walked them onto an out-of-service bus and turned the heat up as high as it would go. Her name was Marlo Fay. The baby was Wren, no relation to my own name, a coincidence that made her almost smile when I told her mine, the first crack of anything but fear in her face. And over the next hour, in the warm hum of a parked bus at the depot while her daughter slept, and color came back into both their faces, she told me as much of it as she could stand to. She'd run. That was the short version. Her husband, a man named Garrett Vane, who came from money and a family that protected its name like a vault, had spent 3 years making her smaller and smaller the way some men do, in 1,000 ways that never left a mark a doctor could photograph. And when the baby came, something in her that had been willing to absorb it all on her own behalf stopped being willing to let her daughter grow up inside it. So she'd taken Wren and what cash she could gather, and she'd run 3 states on buses, staying off anything with her name on it, because Garrett had money and lawyers and a family who'd already told her flatly that if she ever tried to leave, she'd lose the baby, that they'd paint her as unstable, that a Vane does not lose custody to a runaway. "That's why I can't be in a system," she said, rocking Wren in the warm dark of the bus. "The shelters report, the hospitals report. The second my name goes into anything official, his lawyers get a hit, and they'll have a court order before I can get to the next town. He doesn't even want her, Mr. Wren. That's the thing nobody believes. He doesn't want to raise her. He just can't stand that I took something that was his." Her voice cracked. "So I sleep at bus stops, because a bus stop doesn't ask for your name." I sat in the driver's seat of a parked bus at 1 in the morning and felt something I hadn't felt in 6 years. A thing I'd let go quiet, because quiet was easier. The need to stand between somebody and the cold. "You're not sleeping at any more bus stops," I said. "Not while I've got an apartment with a door that locks and a couch nobody's used in 6 years. You don't have to trust me past tonight, but tonight you and that baby are sleeping somewhere warm, and nobody is going to know you're there." I gave them my bedroom. I took the couch. I made sure she knew the door locked from her side before I ever left her alone with it. And that night, for the first time in 6 years, my narrow apartment had the sound of someone else breathing in it, and a baby's small noises in the dark, and I lay on a couch I hadn't used since my marriage ended, and I didn't feel the smallness of my life for the first time in longer than I could remember. They stayed 1 night, then 2. By the 4th morning, I came out to find Marlo had cleaned my kitchen at 5 a.m. because she couldn't sleep and couldn't stand to take without giving, and Wren was on a blanket on the floor batting at a set of measuring spoons like they were the greatest toys ever made. "You don't have to do that," I said. "I can't just take," she said, not looking up. "I have to do something." "Then do this," I said. "Stay, get warm, let her get warm, stop running for a minute, that's the something." She didn't say yes, but she didn't bring up leaving either, and that was its own kind of answer. I won't pretend the next weeks were simple. They weren't. I gave them the bedroom and the door that locked, and I asked nothing. And slowly, the way trust comes to a person who's learned the world isn't safe, Marlo stopped flinching when I came in from a shift. She started leaving her door open. She started waiting up, not out of fear, but to hear how the route had gone. I learned to warm a bottle. I learned the particular weight of a sleeping baby against your chest, which is a weight that rearranges a man. I drove the last bus every night and came home to a window with a light in it, and somewhere in there my life stopped being a route and an apartment and a coffee order and started being something I didn't have a word for but didn't want to lose. I found her a job, eventually, cash, off the books, doing the morning baking at the diner that knew me by my coffee, because the owner, an old woman named Pearl, asked no questions and had run from a man herself 40 years back and recognized the look. I watched Marlo stand a little straighter every week. I watched her laugh, once, really laugh at something Wren did, and the sound of it stopped me in the doorway because I understood I would do a great deal to keep hearing it. And then Garrett Vane found them anyway. It wasn't anything Marlo did. It was a photo, a stupid, harmless thing. Pearl had put a picture of the diner's new morning baker on the little community board by the register, proud of her, and someone who knew someone saw it. And in a connected world, 3 states isn't as far as it used to be. Garrett's lawyers filed before Marlo even knew she'd been found. An emergency custody petition, painting her exactly as the family had promised. Unstable, a flight risk, a mother who'd dragged an infant across the country to sleep at bus stops, unfit, endangering the child. They wanted Wren returned to the father pending a full hearing. They had money and a name and a family that had decided, and Marlo had a cash job at a diner and a borrowed bedroom in a bus driver's apartment. She wanted to run again. I found her at 3 in the morning packing the diaper bag with shaking hands, and I knew the look because it was the same look from the bus stop. A creature deciding to bolt because bolting was the only defense it had ever had. "Marlo, stop!" "He found us, Tobias. If I stay, they'll take her. If I run tonight, I've got a head start." "You can't outrun lawyers forever. You said it yourself. The next bus stop, the next photo, the next system." I stepped in front of the door, gentle. Running kept her safe when running was all you had. It isn't all you have anymore. What do I have? A cash job and a borrowed bed? Against the Vane family? "You have a witness," I said. "You have a man who found you and your daughter freezing at a bus stop because you were so afraid of his system that you'd rather sleep in the snow than walk into it. You have a diner owner who'll testify what kind of mother shows up at 5 a.m. to bake bread with a baby on her hip. You have 11 weeks of receipts, a steady job, a safe home, a baby who's thriving." I held her eyes. "His lawyers want to tell a story about a runaway who endangered her child. Let's tell the true one. About a mother who ran into the cold to keep her daughter out of the hands of the man who made her run. Juries and judges aren't as easy to buy as he thinks, but only if you stay and fight. If you run, you hand him the story he's already written." She was crying. "I'm so scared." "I know. So fight scared. That's the only kind of brave there is." We got her a lawyer, a sharp, quiet woman named Adaeze Okonkwo, who took the case for less than it was worth because she'd built her whole practice on cases exactly like it. And we built the true story, piece by piece, the 11 weeks of stability, Pearl's testimony, the medical records showing a healthy, thriving baby, and me, the bus driver who found them, who could tell a courtroom exactly what it looks like when a woman is so terrified of a man's reach that she chooses the snow over a shelter. The hearing was in January, in a courtroom that smelled of radiator heat and old paper. Garrett Vane sat across the aisle in a suit that cost more than I made in 2 months, beside a lawyer with a smile I recognized from 100 late-night drunks who thought charm was the same as character. His family filled the row behind him. He didn't look at Marlo. He looked at the baby. Once. The way a man looks at property he's reclaiming. His lawyer told the story they'd written. The unstable mother. The endangered child. The bus stops. Twisted into evidence of unfitness instead of evidence of terror. And then it was Marlo's turn, and she stood up, and I watched her decide not to be small. "My husband's lawyer says I endangered my daughter by sleeping at bus stops," she said, her voice shaking and then steadying as she went. "He's right that I did. I slept at bus stops. In December. In the snow. With my baby wrapped in my own coat and nothing on my own back." She looked at the judge. "And I want this court to ask the only question that matters, which his lawyer is very carefully steering you around. Why? Why would a mother do that? Why would anyone choose a frozen bench over a warm shelter? Her voice rose, clear now. Because the shelters report to a system, and the system reports to people with money, and the people with money told me to my face that if I ever left, they would take my daughter and paint me exactly the way they're painting me in this room right now. I didn't sleep in the snow because I'm unfit. I slept in the snow because I was that afraid of the man sitting across this aisle. A mother doesn't choose the cold over a roof unless what's under the roof is worse than the cold. The courtroom was silent. He doesn't want to raise her, Marlowe said, quieter now, looking at Garrett for the first time. Everyone in his family knows it. He wants to win. He wants to take back the thing I took when I walked out the door. But she isn't a thing, Garrett. She's a person, and she deserves a parent who chose the snow for her, not one who's only here because he can't stand to lose. I testified after her. I told the court what I found at Halford and Pine. A woman who'd given her child her only coat, who woke up begging not to be reported, who chose to freeze rather than be found. I told them what 11 weeks in my home had looked like. And when Garrett's lawyer tried to suggest there was something improper in a single man housing a young mother, I said the only true thing there was to say. I gave them the bedroom with the door that locks. I slept on a couch I hadn't used in 6 years, and I'd do it again tomorrow. Because a man who finds a baby freezing at a bus stop and drives past isn't a man. The only thing improper in this whole story is the reason she was at that bus stop in the first place, Pearl testified. The doctor's records spoke, and a daze laid the true story out so plainly that Garrett's expensive smile slowly stopped meaning anything at all. The judge didn't rule that day. But when the ruling came, 2 weeks later, it gave Marlowe primary custody, ordered supervised visitation only for Garrett pending a psychological evaluation, and noted, in language Adiz read to us twice because she couldn't believe a judge had written it so plainly, that the mother's choice to seek warmth outside official channels, given the documented credible fear, reflected protective instinct rather than instability. We won. The cold story turned out to be the true one, and the true one was enough. Garrett appealed, the way men like him do. It went nowhere. His own family, it turned out, grew tired of paying for a fight he'd only started out of spite, and somewhere in the second round of legal bills, even the Vanes decided the baby they'd never wanted to raise wasn't worth the cost of taking. The visitation he'd been granted, he mostly didn't use. Spite has a short attention span when it stops being convenient. Marlowe and Wren never went back to the bus stop. They never left the apartment either, as it turned out. Somewhere in those weeks of waiting and fighting, the couch I'd hauled out of my marriage and the bedroom with the door that locked had stopped being an emergency arrangement and started being a home. Marlowe kept baking at Pearl's, then ran the place when Pearl's knees gave out, then bought in as a partner with money she earned herself, every dollar of it hers. Wren took her first steps across my living room floor, lurching from the couch to my outstretched hands, and I caught her, and Marlowe cried. And I understood that the last bus of the night had carried me somewhere after all. We didn't rush. After what she'd survived, I wouldn't have let us even if she'd wanted to. But love that grows slow in a warm kitchen is a different thing than the kind that comes on fast. And one ordinary evening, with Wren asleep and the snow coming down outside the same as the night I found them, Marlowe leaned against my shoulder on the couch and said, "You know she calls you something now, when you're not listening." "Yeah?" "Dada." She wasn't looking at me. I didn't teach her. She just decided. I had to look at the window for a minute so she wouldn't see my face. We married the next winter, a small thing. Pearl and a daze and a handful of people from the diner in a warm room with the snow coming down outside because Marlowe said she wanted to be married in the snow on purpose this time to take it back. In what passed for my vows, I told her the truth, which was all I'd ever given her. "The night I found you," I said, "you woke up and begged me not to tell anyone. You were so afraid of being found that you chose the snow." I had to stop a second. I want to spend the rest of my life being the person you don't have to hide from, the one you run toward instead of away. I drove the last bus of the night for 9 years, telling myself it was just a route. It turned out it was carrying me to a covered stop on Halford and Pine, where the two best things in my life were freezing on a bench, waiting for somebody to not drive past. Marlowe said in hers, "I spent 3 years being made small, and 3 states learning to disappear. And one December night I begged a stranger not to tell anyone I existed. And he took off his own coat and said the last bus was for people with nowhere to be, and that made us his." She wiped her eyes. "I don't want to disappear anymore, Tobias. I spent so long hiding that I forgot a person could just be found and have it be the best thing that ever happened to them. You found us. You're still the only one I ever wanted to be found by." These days, the apartment isn't narrow anymore, even though it's the same square footage. Funny how that works. Wren is 3 now and rules the place like a small benevolent queen. Marlowe runs the diner that once hid her. I still drive the last bus of the night, the 1140 loop, the one for the people the day used up, and now and then, when my headlights catch a shape on a bench at a covered stop, I pull over. I always pull over. Because somebody once was a shape on a bench and I almost drove past, and I've spent every night since grateful I didn't. People ask how we met. Marlowe tells them the truth. "He found me and my daughter sleeping at a bus stop in the snow," she says, "and I woke up and the first thing I said to him, this kind stranger who'd stopped to help, was, 'Please don't tell anyone.'" And then she always adds the part that matters. "I spent my whole life trying not to be found. He's the one who taught me that being found by the right person isn't the end of running. It's the place you finally get to stop. I'd spent 6 years believing my life had narrowed down to a route and an apartment and a coffee order, and that narrow was just the shape a man's life takes when he stops reaching. A woman freezing at a bus stop taught me otherwise. Because the last bus of the night isn't empty. It never was. It's full of people with nowhere left to be. And sometimes, if you don't drive past, one of them turns out to be the whole rest of your life, wrapped in her own coat against the cold, begging you not to tell anyone, not knowing yet that you're the one person she never has to hide from again. I didn't drive past. It's the best thing I ever did.